The process of becoming a foreign trained doctor working in Germany is long, complex and not easy to understand, which is why I made this video to help you along the way. Welcome back to this channel. If you have been following, you will have noticed that for a while there have not been any new videos. That is because I was deeply researching the topic of foreign doctors coming to Germany, and originally I wanted to build this idea into an app, but for now I stopped the work on the app. However, I wanted to already share all the inside resources and knowledge that I have gathered in order to help you along your way already. And to do this, I will structure this video into 7 parts. The first part will be about the general situation of doctors in Germany, mainly about the question of whether or not Germany actually does need doctors in the future. The second part will be about the possible career path that you could have if you were to come to Germany. The third part will be about the process of actually getting the German medical license, which is called Approbation. And this is the process that is not easy to understand. And I'm German myself. And I will give you an overview of what the basic principles and ideas behind the process are and what you need to pay attention to in order to get through it efficiently. The fourth part will be about an overview of all the different possibilities and different approaches you could take to go through this journey. So dependent on where you are from and where you received your medical education from, there are different strategies. So I came up with 15 different strategies that you could take. So I will give a broad overview of them. And in the fifth part, I will take a deep dive into one of these strategies, which will be the 16D visa plus the Kenntnisprüfung exam. So these are very specific terms. I will make sure that you understand what these mean. But I feel like this is one of the journeys that will be most applicable to most of the people thinking about going through this process. And we will go through all the phases and all the steps, the sequence of the steps, which will then lead me to the next part, which will be the success factors that I see as things that you should pay attention to get through this process most efficiently and with the most minimal amount of wasted money and time. And in the final part of this video, I will give you an overview of the resources that I have put together for you so that you can already start your journey and things that might be helpful for you along the way. So let's not waste any more time and let's get into it. Okay, let's start with the first section of this video, which is the general situation of doctors in Germany. And the main question I want to answer for you is whether or not Germany actually needs doctors. Because many times doctors ask me that if I'm starting this journey, which will take a long time, what will be the situation when I finish the journey? Will there actually be a demand from a professional like myself? Or is there a already sufficient amount of doctors in Germany and therefore I am going through this process without having a real chance at a job afterwards? So I put together a couple of slides to give you a more objective view on the topic. So the short answer that I say is yes, but how I come to this conclusion, I will now show you so that you also have some more tangible objective data that I can and you can base your decision on. So let me first start out by showing you this slide right here, which is contrasting two sides of it. The first part is the part on the right, which you see on the left, which you see right here. And these are two numbers that would indicate that there are enough doctors in Germany, because the number of working doctors in 2020 was a little over 400,000, which was the highest total number ever of doctors in the history of Germany. And also the number of doctors per 1,000 inhabitants was one of the highest rates in all of the OECD countries. So if you would look at this left side, you would say, okay, there's enough doctors. So maybe there is not room for any more doctors coming from abroad. However, if you look on the right side, there is a statement made by Dr. Klaus Reinhardt, who is the head of the German Medical Association. And every year this association is releasing their annual doctor statistics. And when they released them in 2020, he said the following statement. He said, "We view this development with concern. This is because we urgently need a sufficient number of physicians to cope with the consequences of the continuing trend toward part-time work, the rising average age of the physician workforce, and demographic change. If the number of available physician hours decreases, this will not succeed." So what he's saying is contrast to what you would see by just looking at the numbers on the left side. And he is mentioning a couple of factors, and he's also talking about the physician hours as the kind of metric to base the situation on. So what he's talking about, I would illustrate it a little bit like this. So you would have a chart where on the y-axis you have the total hours available by doctors in a year in Germany, and here you would have the time going forward. And if you were to take his statements and put them on this chart, you would have something that looks a little bit like this. So the blue line, you have the demand by patients. So this is the numbers of physician hours that are demanded by the population in Germany. And then you have the amount of hours that are supplied by the medical system. So the number of hours that are actually supplied by the medical doctors working in the medical system. And you would see that there would be a development in the future where demand is rising, however supply is stagnating or even going down a little bit. And you would see that in the future a gap would be opening up here. And one could say that maybe we are at a point in Germany where demand and supply is kind of balancing itself out. Some people say we might be even a little bit further here. But nevertheless, what Klaus Reinhardt is alluding to is that in the future this gap might be coming up and this gap might be widening over time. And we'll go into why that is. So first of all, the demand by patients. We'll just quickly look at the demographic distribution within Germany. So in 2019 you would have roughly 83 million people, and you have 19% of people who are older than 67. And it would give you a total number of people over 67 at 16.1 million. If you would go to 2040, so roughly 20 years in the future, you would have a lower total number of people living in Germany, just 80.7. However, the proportion of people older than 67 is significantly higher, which also increases that total number to 5 million. This is all data based or coming from the official Department of Statistics in Germany. So we would have a higher total number of older people in the German society. You see here the distribution of healthcare expenditures per age group, and you see that the older age groups, even though they don't make up 50% of the population, they make up almost 50% of the total spending. And if you look at the average cost of medical treatment per age group, you see that a person between 65 and 85, and especially older than 85, they cost a lot more money than younger age groups, which also indicates that they require a lot more treatment than younger age groups. So you would have a situation where you have more older people, and of course older people per person require more treatment. So that is why demand for the medical hours provided will probably rise in the future. And let's get to the second factor, which is the supply of hours that doctors are able to provide in one given year. Calculating the supply of available doctor hours is quite straightforward. You would multiply the total number of doctors times the hours worked per doctor on average. And in the past, the total number of doctors has increased, and the number of hours worked per doctor have slightly decreased. There is not super clean statistics on this. However, the German Medical Association did put out a statement that in 2015 you needed 108 doctors to fill 100 full-time positions. So imagine you're a hospital that has 100 full-time positions, each requiring 40 hours of work. In 2015 you would need 108 people to fill those 100 full-time positions, meaning that each person would work a little less than 40 hours, because if everyone was working 40 hours, it would be 100 people exactly. If everyone was working a little bit more than 40 hours, you would only need maybe like 95 doctors to fill those 100 full-time positions. And from 2015 to 2017, this number changed from 108 to 115. So you would need even more doctors to fill those full-time positions, because each doctor on average worked even less hours. And if we look into the future, now for the total number of doctors, you could say that this trend, if it continues, would further go down. This is due to the fact that almost half of the doctors are older than 50, and around 190,000 doctors, 190,000 less doctors will be around in 10 to 15 years, assuming that 65 is the average rate of retirement. And you would need 12, almost 13,000 new doctors per year to compensate for that. However, in the last 10 years, only 7,500 new doctors each year were kind of entering the German medical system. So if this trend continues, the total number of doctors will decrease. And if you look at the hours worked per average per doctor, you will see that, or you could say that this trend of working less hours will continue. This is due to the fact that the younger generation of doctors is more oriented toward work-life balance. They want to spend more time with their family. They might be a little bit exhausted by the long hours they have to work in the hospital. It's a very exhausting job. So they might be looking to find a better balance between their professional and their private life. And therefore you could say that this trend that has been already kind of been seen in the past will continue in the future, where you have less hours per doctor that are actually working per week. So if the total number of doctors is going down and the hours per doctor worked is going down, you will have a decrease in the supply of doctor hours available. This I will not go into. This just is giving a little bit more detail of why or how this doctor hours is changing and what are the factors for it. Maybe the one big thing to look at is that the private practice, or doctors working in doctors that are employed in a private practice, has increased significantly. This is due to the fact that this is a work form where you are not working in the hospital, you work in a private practice, so you don't have the hour demand as in the hospital, but you're also not running the private practice. It is not yours, you're just an employee, so you also have less responsibilities, you have to deal with less managerial overhead things. So this is the work form that requires the least hours of work per week, and you see that in the last 10 years there has been a great increase of doctors working in this particular field, mostly due to the fact that it offers a better work-life balance. This is the biggest point that you need to take away from this. This also, you can pause the video if you want to look at it. This is just the distribution of numbers per age group, and it's also showing the image that the total number of doctors in the future is at risk of significantly decreasing in the future. And this, again, you can pause the video. I will not go into detail for this. This outlines some reasons why people are working less hours on average. So if you have this situation that you have a decrease in supply of doctors while the demand is actually increasing, you have two options. You first can change the total number of doctors, or you could change the hours worked per doctor. We already saw that this is something that has to do with a lot of societal, personal preferences, which is probably difficult to change. So the big lever here would be to change the total number of doctors. And one thing would be to increase the number of medical graduates from German university, and the German government has put some policies in place to increase the number of medical graduates. So for example, if you are willing to work as a resident doctor and a general practitioner in a more countryside rural area where there's a big shortage of general practitioners, you will get into medical school even though you don't have the grades necessary for it. So if you say, I will, after graduating, work as a general practitioner for, I think, 10 years in the countryside, in a rural area, I will do that, then they will get a spot in the medical school, even though their grades from high school might not be good enough. And the second part that you could do to increase the total number of doctors is obviously to increase the number of foreign doctors coming to Germany. And you can see that in the last 20 years, this number has increased by the factor of 5. So in 2000, we have roughly 12,000 foreign doctors or foreign trained doctors in Germany, and 2020 it is getting close to 60,000. So there's been already a strong trend in the past for foreign doctors in Germany. And these are some calculations. You can also pause the video. I will not go into super detail, but this is just some calculations I did based on statistics by the German Medical Association. And here you would see the situation without foreign doctors and with the average growth rate of new doctors from the past. How would the total number of doctors change in the years 25, 2030 and so forth? So you can see that there would be a total decrease by new doctors, a total decrease of doctors if there were no foreign doctors coming to Germany, and the growth rate would be as the one from the past 10 years, and 65, even 70. So I put 70 as the retirement age, which is very, it is 65, but a little bit more optimistic case, let's say 70. If 70 is the retirement age, how would the number of total doctors change if there wasn't any foreign doctors? So this would be this scenario. You would see that it would go down drastically to 2045 to almost 100,000 doctors less. And here, this is with the growth rate, including the foreign doctors from the past, how the numbers would change. And you would see that with this, you would get a slight increase and then a slight decrease, but more or less be stable. So foreign doctors are needed at the moment just to even stabilize the German medical system in terms of having enough hours and enough physicians in the system. And a lot of people will ask, well, is this a shortage that can be generalized to any field of medicine in any area in Germany? And I would say no. It definitely shows that there are differences between the different medical specialization fields and where in Germany you are looking at. And I did a rough analysis of which medical fields are facing most risk of shortages. So what I did, I took the proportion of current doctors who are over the age of 50, and the higher the proportion, the higher the score. And then I took the average yearly rate of new doctors in the field from the past 10 years. So the lower the rate, the higher the score. And the number of doctors working in that field today, the higher the number, the higher the score. And then I summarized all those scores, and the fields with the highest scores are ranked as the ones, or the ones with the highest score have the highest risk of being a shortage area in the future. And you can also pause this. This might be, if you're looking on the phone, might be a little small. What you see is that there's a trend that it's not the same for each medical profession or each field of specialization. So general medicine, like I already said, is by far the highest. It has a score of 92, so it is very much at risk of having a shortage in the future. And if you say maybe neurology, this is the 30 right here, is not as much of risk of having a shortage in the future. So this will never be kind of a definitive and final fact. So if you're wanting to work in neurology and you say, oh, there's no shortage in that in the future, there will still be places available, and likewise, it's not like every general practitioner will just get a job like nothing. However, this trend might be useful for you to consider, okay, what are my chances, or even better, how much effort do I have to put in to get a job? So if you're planning to be a general practitioner, might be easier than if you want to work as a neurologist. So again, you can pause this video and look at this graph to see where your specific field of specialization is located in this graph. And again, this is not official statistics. I just did this based on statistics available to kind of get a better idea of how at risk are these different fields. Yeah, so these are just the backups and the detailed breakdown of where these numbers come from. Feel free to pause the video right here and to look through them. And also the geographic location plays a role in how strongly a region will be affected by doctor shortages. And there is an association called KBV in German, Kassenärztliche Bundesvereinigung, and they are responsible for all the resident doctors that are in the public healthcare system. Yeah, so you don't need to know what this is. It's just they represent or they keep number and keep track of a lot of doctors in Germany, and they give out these maps every year, and they update these maps on a regular basis, showing which areas in Germany have which density of which type of doctors. So you will see right here that the darker the area on this map right here, the higher the doctor density, and the lighter the color, the lower the doctor density. And this does not account for hospitals in the region, and larger urban areas like Berlin, for example, often act as like a medical hub for surrounding areas. So Berlin is very dark colored here, and the surrounding areas are very light colored. So this might be a fact that a lot of doctors are in Berlin, and people from outside are commuting in and out to those doctors. And they have a breakdown of all the different fields in terms of how high the density of those doctors is in each region in Germany. So if you think about your journey, you will probably have the easiest chances to get into the system if you choose a profession that is in need of doctors in an area that is in need of doctors, and ideally in need of this particular type of doctor. And for example, if you want to go to Munich and be a neurologist, probably your chances are lower than if you want to be a general practitioner here in this North Rhine-Westphalia area where you have a low density of doctors. So this is not to say that if you have a field that is less in need and you want to live in a big city, that this is not possible. I'm just saying that it might be an easier path if you're open and flexible, that some other combination of special field and geographic location might make it easier for you. So you can pause this video right here if you want to look at these maps in detail. I will not go through all of them. And to wrap up this first section, I also included this graph from Bertelsmann Stiftung, which is a German think tank, and they looked at the distribution of doctors in Germany according to the geographic areas. So if you look right here, the blue one is the major city area, and then it is the surrounding areas of that, and then a little further out, a little further out, and a little further out. And you can see that the general population in Germany, roughly 25%, live in major city centers. However, you also see that a lot more proportionately doctors work in city areas. So you see that people working or living in cities have access to a lot more physicians than people who are not living in the city area. So you see, like, for example, 27% of people live in kind of the far out regions, not far out from the city, and only 18% of psychotherapists, for example, also work in those areas, so you have an underrepresentation of them. So this is also an indicator that if you are looking at the major cities and the areas, you will have probably a higher density of doctors, a bigger supply of doctors, and the further you go out from those city centers and major city areas, the lower the supply and the lower the density of doctors will be. So what you should take away from this section is that, number one, indicators are there that the doctor shortage will increase in the future as there will be a growing demand due to older population. Meanwhile, the supply will go down due to the stagnating or slightly decreasing total number of doctors, but also the numbers of hours worked per doctor will go down. So there will be a need for doctors in the future. Also, if you look at where this need will happen, there are some specific medicine fields that it will be applying to more, and others will be applying to less. And also, if you look at geographic distribution, city centers will probably experience those effects later than the rural areas will. So if you're looking for kind of strategies of how to approach this, maybe looking at medical fields that are more in need of doctors in areas that are more in need of doctors will probably not be a guarantee for it to work out. Just like if you look at popular fields in major attractive city areas, it will also not be impossible, but it will probably be easier to get in your foot in the door if you choose kind of the combination of high demand in terms of your medical specialization and high demand in terms of geography. So I hope that this was a good way for you to understand what the situation is, and you are looking forward to hearing what the journey further could entail. So let's jump into the second part, what the possible career path could look like. Let's get to the second part of this video, which is the potential career path you could have as a doctor in Germany. So let me just start out by giving you a quick overview of what the stages are in a typical medical career in Germany. You would start out as a medicine student, which is a medical student in university. This phase lasts 5 years, and you will do some internships in between them. And after that, there would be a transition to PJ student, which is the medical student in her final practical year. And this is fully done in hospital setting. And at the end of this, you will, or there will be a couple of exams that you will have to pass, and then the medical student will get the German medical license, which is called Approbation, which is the thing that you as a foreign trained doctor are trying to get also through the process that I will explain in the next part. After the Approbation has been received, the doctor becomes an Assistenzarzt, which is kind of an assistant doctor. Some translations that I found would be also resident doctor, resident physician. This is done in the hospital setting, and the Assistenzarzt is specializing in one field, so it could be oncology, surgery, general medicine, and depending on which field the doctor is focusing on or wants to specialize in, it will take 5 to around 6 years. Then there will be a specialist exam, and if that is passed, the doctor will receive the specialist recognition. That means that the doctor can then act in this field of medicine independently. So they could do continue to work in the hospital as a Facharzt, so you're a medical specialist in the hospital, or you could change into opening up your private practice or working as an employed doctor in someone else's private practice in this particular medical field that the person has gotten the specialization in. If the person decides to stay in the hospital setting, the Facharzt would be followed by the Oberarzt, which is a specialist doctor, but they also have responsibility for a department within a hospital. So you get more managerial responsibilities, so to speak, if you work as an Oberarzt. And then what could happen, which probably will not apply to most of the doctors, is that you could become a Chefarzt, which is a head doctor, chief physician, head physician. So that is the person who has overall responsibility of a department within a hospital. So they could be a Chefarzt or for oncology, and then they have a colleague who is a Chefarzt for internal medicine based on the hospital and what they offer. So each department within the hospital would have a Chefarzt at the top of it. And then for the ones who really put a lot of effort in their careers, they could become Ärztlicher Direktor, like a medical director, and they have the overall medical responsibility of a hospital. And oftentimes, if it's a big hospital, they have one person leading it from a business perspective and then one person leading it from a medical perspective. And the Ärztlicher Direktor would be kind of the person leading it from a medical perspective. And the most people will definitely do the Facharzt, and some will then also, or most will probably also continue as Oberarzt if they stay in a hospital, or they will then go into the private practice. Chefarzt and Ärztlicher Direktor, probably not something that everyone will be doing, but these are paths that are open for people who have the Facharzt and Oberarzt qualification. So if you were a foreign doctor starting in Germany, you would kind of start at this Approbationslevel right here, and then depending on some other factors that I will talk about, you would then have to work as an Assistenzarzt or directly be able to jump into Facharzt. But this is kind of the German system, how it works, how it looks. This is a hierarchy breakdown of a kind of organizational chart. So in a fictitious hospital, this is not some real life example. This is a hospital that has the medical director on top. You have different departments, each with a Chefarzt. And then within a department, so for example, internal medicine, you have an Oberarzt that is responsible for the area of cardiology within internal medicine. Underneath, you would have the Fachärzte, Assistenzarzt, the student in the final year, and the Medizinstudent. So that would be a person who's still a medical student in the first 5 years who is doing one of those 30 days internships. So this would be the kind of hierarchical breakdown. And you can pause this video right here also to go through it in detail. I laid out how long the training and specialization training is in months for all the different specializations that are in Germany, and I've also put some English translations to it so you can have a better understanding of them. You can pause it whenever you want to. And like I already said, if you finish your Facharzt training, you can, number one, work as a specialist Facharzt in a hospital and continue to work as Oberarzt and so forth. Or you could, number two, also work as a specialist Facharzt in an office-based private practice setting. So that means that you're not in a hospital, but a private practice where patients come and get treatment. And there are two options for that as well. So the person could be opening their own office and become the resident established doctor of this, or become the resident doctor of a new office, or they could take over an existing office by a doctor who is retiring. And what the options are, I will in this for this option or for this path, I will tell you in a minute. The second option, if you want to be a office-based private practice-based doctor, is also to get employed as one. So you're not the one responsible for the whole practice. So you're not the owner of it. You're simply an employed doctor, and you just are working a set number of hours per week, and this means you will have a lower salary but also less responsibility, more free time, those kinds of things. If you are looking at the different types of hospitals, you can break them down broadly into the public ones, into the non-governmental charitable ones, and the private ones. In terms of numbers, the private ones have the most, but if you look in terms of beds, the public ones have the highest capacity, and also a number of patient cases and full-time doctor positions, they have the most. They would include, the public ones, all the university hospitals, so all the hospitals that are affiliated to the medical schools in Germany, and also general public, local, municipal hospitals that are run by the local governments and local those would include, for example, university hospitals, so all the hospitals that are associated with the medical schools in Germany, and also kommunale Krankenhäuser, which are all the public, local, municipal hospitals that are just run locally by the local city or state. In the non-governmental charitable one, you have different groups. I just listed the biggest ones here. And the private ones, there's also a big range of different hospital providers in that field. Helios, Asklepios, Sana, and Rhön-Kliniken are the 4 largest employers in that field. And in total, you have 1,900 hospitals in Germany in 2021 that was. So it might be a little bit changing today, but more or less that will be the number. In terms of salaries, there will be differences between the 3 different hospital types I just showed you. So this is a snapshot of what it looks like for the university hospital. So there are fixed tariffs that you get for each stage and each year in that stage. So it starts right here as a PJ student. So depending on the hospital, you might get nothing or 860 euros per month. But then when you really start working, you get roughly 5,000 euros before taxes per month, so around 60,000 per year. And then you go through the Assistenzarzt and the Facharzt route. And if you become an Oberarzt, you could make up to 10,000 euros per month before taxes. And then if you become Chefarzt, you can get 25,000 euros or more for that. But this will probably be the range that most doctors will end up at some point in their career. And if you look at the public, local and municipal hospitals, you will have more or less the same numbers, a little lower than the university clinics. And if you look at the private ones, you will also see that in the especially Assistenzarzt and Facharzt salaries, you will have a higher number, probably the highest numbers out of all the 3 different hospital types. What I read is that working hours might also be a little higher in private hospitals though. So this is, you can pause this video and look at it, but just saying that there is a fixed amount of money that you will make based on the tariffs and the bargaining agreements that have been signed between the hospitals and the doctors, and you will make a very decent living. It is probably the job with the highest average income in Germany that you can train for. So if you are a doctor, money is, you get a good salary in Germany. You can have a very good life in Germany. If you choose to not work in a hospital, like I said, you can also work in a private practice. And number 1, you can open your own office. For that, you will need your finished Facharzt qualification. And if you want to treat both patients who are publicly and also the ones who are privately insured, you need to see if the area in which you want to open your practice is open or closed. So this is determined by the medical association, and if the area is closed, then the only option is to take over an existing office from a doctor who wants to give up their practice or is retiring and looking for a successor for theirs. If it's open, you are free to open your practice in that area. If you only want to treat private patients, you will have no local restrictions in terms of if you can open your practice or not. And you will have to deal with a lot of other factors besides just the medical training if you open your own private practice, because you're opening your own business, so to speak. So you need to have a lot of financial planning, you need to employ people, you need to set up IT and all, machinery, equipment, all those kinds of things. So there is a lot more effort into just building out your business, next to the medical aspects of it. And if that is too much of a hassle, you can also get employed by a resident doctor in an already existing office. For this, you will also need to have a finished Facharzt training, and you need to find a doctor who is willing to employ you in his or her office. And this is also an overview of what the general salaries are if you are a resident doctor or if you work in a private practice. And number 1, if you're like the resident doctor, you're the owner of the practice, or you're just employed in one. And you can see that the average salaries for some professions are really high. This is before taxes and also after other direct office expenses. So maybe you had to take on loans to buy some equipment, machinery. So this will deduct this amount of money. However, you see that you can earn a really good living if you are willing to take the risk and open your own private practice and are kind of putting in the work to running your own business. And if you work as a resident doctor in your own business, in your own practice, this is roughly the number of hours that you can expect to work. So it all, depending on what field you're working in, between 45 and 52 hours, even though there have been a lot of protests by doctors in the past in private practices that they don't get paid enough and also have to work a lot. So you never know if those numbers then also include some other things that you do after hours. You do all your business expenses, your taxes, dealing with employees, all those kinds of things. But in general, you will work more as a resident doctor than if you are employed as a resident doctor. You will have significantly lower working hours per week, especially if you're only a part-time doctor. Also, you will get less salary. And in terms of salary, you can also see that you make less money than if you are the resident doctor in the private practice. However, you don't have the risk, you don't have all the kind of stress and the responsibilities that come with running this practice and owning it and having to be the one who is responsible for all the things that need to be in place. So this is always a personal preference. If you're willing to take the risk and you are wanting to make a little bit more money, you want to be your own boss, open your own practice if it's possible. If you want to have a little bit more of a relaxed lifestyle and less responsibilities and cool with having a little less money than being employed in an office is also an option. So you saw that the options for the career are pretty straightforward, what you can do, and in terms of salary and what you can make, it is quite attractive. Even for German standards, you can make a good living. So I hope that this was insightful for you, and let's jump to the next part, which is the actual process of getting Approbation in Germany. Okay, let's jump into the third part of this video, which is about the actual process of getting the German medical license, which is called Approbation, and which is the most challenging part in this whole thing. So I will give you an overview of what the process looks like, what it entails, and what you should pay attention to. So if we look at it from a very simple standpoint, ideally you are at this point right here, you are a medical doctor with the unrestricted, full, permanent, general medical license, whatever it is called in your country, and you are able to practice medicine unrestrictedly, autonomously, and independently in a country outside of Germany already. Doesn't matter which country it is important that you already need to be able to practice as a doctor in some country outside of Germany. That means that you're not in university anymore, you're not doing the final internship year. You need to have finished your medical studies and need to have done all the practical phases afterwards, so that you are officially a part of like medical association in your country or whatever it is that allows you to practice as a doctor. Once you have that, then in order to get to your ultimate goal, which is the medical career that you want to start in Germany, you have to complete an intermediary goal, which is getting the Approbation. This is the key to this whole process. To get to the goal, you need the Approbation. And once you do have it, it's easy to start your medical career. However, getting it is complicated because the process is complex, it is lengthy, and it's not always easy to understand. And me being German myself, I still had to do a lot of research, and I probably still also don't know all the details about the process, but I think I know enough to give you good guidance on what you should pay attention to, and to have you provide to you a structured and transparent journey that you can take in the future. So what do you need in order to get the Approbation? Well, there are 4 things that need to be in place. The first one I already talked about, that is the right to already practice as a doctor in a country outside of Germany. Then the second part is that the medical education that you have, so the education that you received in medical school, but also the experiences you gained working as a doctor, are combined at a level that is comparable to the German medical education at the Approbations level. So all the things that a German medical student needs to know in order to get the Approbation, they have to see that you bring all this knowledge and skills with you as well. Then the third part is the German language skills, which there are 2 components that you need to pay attention to. and there are also some formal requirements that you need to fulfill. If those 4 things are all checked, then you will get the Approbation. So that means that you need to submit a lot of paperwork. This is a very paper-intensive process. You need to submit a lot of documentation, and the most probably is referring to the medical education, depending on where you're from. If you're from an EU country, or you received your education in an EU country, I should say, then the documents that you need to provide are a lot less than if you were to receive, or then if you received your medical education in a non-EU country. Then you will have to submit a lot more documents. And just for the sake of easiness, if I talk about EU countries, I mean all the EU countries, plus Norway, plus Iceland, plus Liechtenstein, plus Switzerland. So the whole European Economic Area, I might say. So you need to submit a lot of documents, and you send them physically via post to the responsible office, state office in Germany, and they will take a look and evaluate your documents. And out of the evaluation, there can be 3 results. First one is you fulfill all requirements and you are given the Approbation, which would be great, but if you start the process and you first submit your first set of documents, this will not be the case, probably. What will happen is that they say there are still some requirements missing and you need to complete further steps. Could also be the case that they say, okay, there's no chance of you getting Approbation because in no way, shape or form is what you have a medical education in our eyes. So there's no point that with your current profile you can continue the process. But most people, if you are a medical doctor and you've done the training, you will fall into the middle bucket right here. So you will have to complete additional steps. And an important thing to know about this process is that it is handled on a state level. There are 16 states in Germany. You can see them here on the right side of the screen. And you apply for Approbation in one state. That means that you have to ideally go through the whole process in one state. And you cannot have the process active in multiple states at the same time. And if you choose to switch or you want to switch the states during the process, it is possible, but it requires a lot of time because you have to switch and people have to accept your application and go through the documentation, and then you will lose time and probably lose money for that matter. So if you want to switch, make a really good assessment beforehand whether or not it is a worthwhile wish of yours, because it will elongate the process and make it a little bit more complex than it should be. So ideally, you go through the process of getting the Approbation, meaning you send the documents and do all the steps and get the final Approbation at the end in one of the German states. Once you do have the Approbation, you can work all over Germany. It doesn't restrict you in terms of where you can work. It would be better if it would be central, in my opinion. It would be one place in Germany where you send it to. Unfortunately, it's not. So you have 16 different states. Everyone's doing it a little bit in their own way. So that is a major part why this process is so complex in my view. But it is what it is. So just remember, it is 16 states. Try to do it in one. And this is just, you can pause the video and look at this in more detail. These are the designated officers in each state that are responsible for the process. And once you do have the Approbation and you are not already a medical specialist, then you can start the process of working as an Assistenzarzt, which I talked about in the second part, for 5 to 6 years. And then you get your specialist Facharzt recognition. If you are already a specialist doctor from abroad, you already did your medical specialist training and qualification, then you can also start working as an Assistenzarzt. But in parallel to that, you start and complete the process of also getting your specialist training recognized in Germany. So this is not done automatically with the Approbation, but you have to get the Approbation first, and then you hand in the documents that are about your specialist training, and then the state in which you work will look at those and also then determine whether or not you become a Facharzt immediately, or if you have to do a couple of more years of certain things within the Assistenzarzt phase that you still need to complete that they don't see you in profile right now, or it could be that you have to do the complete Assistenzarzt phase. So just remember, if you're already a specialist, you have to get the Approbation first, and then you can start the process of getting the specialist qualification. While getting this whole thing sorted out, you can start working as an Assistenzarzt. So you will be able to work as a doctor, and then as soon as you get the recognition for your Facharzt, you can work as a Facharzt. So the process in detail. Let's look at this topic of having the right to practice as a doctor in Germany, because there are some confusions around this sometimes. So if you don't have the permanent medical license in any country yet, for example, you're a medical student, then you cannot start the process. Finish your medical studies first, get the permanent, general, whatever it's called, medical license, then you can start it. If you are a doctor who's practicing with a temporary medical license, so for example during your mandatory internship that is part of your medical education, you can also not start the process, because the German state offices will say that you have not completed your medical education and therefore you cannot start the process. Only if you have a permanent general medical license from your country, you can start the process. And I will not go too much into detail about this slide, just give you an idea of what their thinking is behind it. So they are referencing the German medical system. And in Germany, the Approbation is kind of the formal layer. It is a formal piece of paper that you get that allows you to practice as a doctor. But it's just a formality. You have all like kind of the content layer below it, which is a medical education of 6 years with 5,500 hours of classes and 8 to 12 months of practical phases, the German language skills, and other requirements such as physical fitness and no criminal records. So these are the content things, though they need to be in place, but then really to practice you need this formal certificate, this piece of paper. So no one in Germany either can work as a doctor without the Approbation. So you can complete your medical training and the internship and have all the other things in place, German language skills, but if you don't get the Approbation, don't have the formal layer, you will not get the you will not be allowed to work as a doctor. And this is also the way that they check the applications. So in the beginning, they have no idea about you. It's unclear, so they check your documents. And what they first do, if you think about this pyramid, they don't start at the bottom, they don't see if you have all the content layers in place, they look if you have the formal layer in place. So do you have the formal allowance? Are you allowed formally in your country to work as a doctor? So this is the first thing that they look for. They don't look at the content of your studies, but they look at the formal level. Okay, do you formally have the qualification and the right to practice? If that is the case, then they will check the bottom, the content layer, and if that is fine, they will say, yes, you get the Approbation. If not, then further steps are needed. Most people fall into this. Further steps are needed because if you have the formal layer, they will most likely find something in the content, either your medical studies or your German language skills that is not yet there, but can be completed with further steps. If they say, well, you don't even have the formal layer, they will stop the process. They will not even look at what is here, whether or not you have all the training and everything. If you don't have the formal permission by your country or by any country outside of Germany to work as a doctor, they will stop the process. So just to give you some examples, you can skip forward this part if it's too lengthy, but some people sometimes have confusions because they say, well, in Germany it takes 6 years, in my country I already also did 6 years, but still they say I don't have it completed. Why? What is the issue? So let's take like a fictitious example. Country A, you have 5 years of medical training and 1 practical year. You would get a license called License X, and it is allowing you to work autonomously and independently as a medical doctor in your country. That means that if the authorities would check it, they see, oh, you have the formal permission to work. However, the content is not there because it's only 5 years of medical training. So it's not equivalent to the German level. So you need to complete some further steps. Let's say there's country B, and after 6 years, you get a license called Y, which does not allow you to work as a doctor in your country. That means they will stop the process because you don't have the formal requirement to work as a doctor, even though you have 6 years of medical training, which would be maybe, in terms of knowledge and skills, equal to the German education. They will say, well, if you're from country B, we know from your system that you need to do 9 years of medical training. You would get the license Z, which then allows you to practice autonomously in your country. That means that you would have the formal layer, and with 9 years of medical training, assuming that the German skills are there and everything, you would get the Approbation. So this confuses people sometimes because they hear, oh, in Germany it's 6 years of medical studies. Oh, in my country I also completed 6 years. Why is it not equal? Maybe in your country it is that you get the formal permission only after 8 years or after 7 years. And the German authorities know these things. They look into the laws of other countries and they look into, okay, this person is from this country. At what point does this country give a formal permission? Oh, it's after 8 years and this person only has 6 years. We end the process. And people are confused because they look at the numbers of medical training and they say, oh, it's the same. But for authorities, it's not the same because you don't have the formal layer there. Even though maybe the knowledge and the skills are there, it's the formalities that are not there. So this is something that you should pay attention to. If I find the resources, I could put together a document showing what is the case for each country. So far, I've not found the perfect resources for that, but just keep this in mind because this might be able to save you some time before even starting the process. Then the medical education that you need. So this basically can be broken down on a first level into people who got the EU education and non-EU education. If you are a medical doctor who went to medical school and completed medical school in Europe, in the EU, with everything that comes with it, all the practical phases completed in the local language and all those things, not just the medical school and you don't do the internships. If you did everything in the EU country, and you did the medical studies after the country had joined the EU, it is automatically considered equal. That's the easiest, quickest route. Regardless of your nationality, that might be relevant for maybe some visa things, but from the education part, the German authorities will consider this equal. If you did the medical studies and the country only joined the EU after you did them, you have to present an additional document called the Declaration of Conformity, where the country there where you studied confirms that the level of medical education then is the same as now, and then they will also consider it equal. If you are from a non-EU country in terms of medical education, not in terms of nationality, just in terms of where you received your education, there are two routes. The first one would be called Gutachten, which is a detailed evaluation of your documents. Means you need to submit a lot of documents and they will look through them to see whether or not your education is the same as the German education. So that means that everything that a German student learned, you also learned. And if the result of this evaluation is positive, your education will be considered equal to the German one. If it is negative, you need to take an exam called Kenntnisprüfung, or short KP. You have multiple tries for this, 2 to 3 times. If you pass the exam, your education is considered equal. If you fail it, it's the end of the process, if you fail it multiple times. You can also choose to directly take the KP, because the Gutachten requires a lot of effort in terms of time to put the documents together, and also money, because you have to translate all those documents into German by a certified translator, which costs a lot of money. It is an insane amount that you need to pay sometimes for this, because if you have a couple of hundreds of pages and each page by a certified translator costs around 45 euros, you easily get into the 10,000 euro range just for a stack of paper that was translated. So some people say, okay, this costs a lot of money, this takes a lot of time, this evaluation, and it still might be negative. I will take the Kenntnisprüfung directly and just don't take the Gutachten. If you pass it, like I said, it's considered equal. If not, it's the end of the process. So these are all the options that you have based on where you received your medical education. Again, not your personal nationality, but where you completed your medical education. The German language skills, there are two things or two language skill categories that you need to fulfill. First, the general, and then the medicine specific. For the general skills, you need to have a level of B2. So from A1 to C2 is the range, the official classification range. And for the general one, you need to show that you have a B2 level by a Goethe Institute exam, TELC exam. Some states accept also the TESTAF or ÖSD exam. And then for the medicine specific, you need to have a C1 level of German. And this is done through a special exam, which is called FSB, stands for Fachsprachenprüfung, so exam of specialist language. And this is done by the states themselves. So each state will administer these exams where you go and you have a case study and you talk in German about medical vocabulary with evaluators, and they will then decide whether or not you have the required language levels in terms of medicine-specific German to pass. Some states also accept TELC B2, B2 C1 medicine. However, I'm not quite sure by the time I made those, that was still the case. It could be that all the states have switched to FSP by now. So these are the two language skills that or two language levels that you need to prove. So in the end, you will need a C1 level anyways. So when you complete the B2, don't stop, continue your language learning. Don't just learn the medicine-specific language. Also keep practicing your German to get to the C1. Eventually, of course, if you get even better and want to work towards a C2, even better. The better your German, the higher your chances to passing it the first time and not wasting any time. And then there are some formal requirements for the Approbation. This is basically the physical fitness, so you need to get a doctor to give you a physical examination and to confirm that you are physically fit to work as a doctor. Your behavior, also something that is looked at is the certificate of good standing from the medical council in the country that you practice. So they say that as a doctor you had a good standing, you acted professionally, and you also will need a police record from the countries that you have lived. Different states will have different requirements in terms of from which countries they requested. So this is something to pay attention to, but in general you need those things in terms of behavior. And then some other formalities, you need to submit a CV, official identification, and very important, we will talk about this later, the proof of the state's responsibility to process your application for Approbation. This is something that is a super tricky and really complex thing. It is unnecessarily complex in my opinion, but you need to fulfill this, and what it is I will explain in part 5, that is. Again, my simplified definition of what EU and non-EU is, so just that you are aware. So what are the difference for non-EU and EU applicants? So if you are an applicant with a non-EU education, I might say, I'll put this here just to make sure that this is clear. It's not about the nationality. So the amount of required documents, it will be more or less the same for the license, the language skills, the formal skills, but the medical education will have a lot more requirements in terms of documents that you need to submit, especially if you get the Gutachten, because they will require a lot more paperwork to go through and evaluate your education. And also in terms of the required time that you need to put into the process, for non-EU people you have to have more time to prepare your documents because it's more documents. Also, the evaluation of your documents might take a lot more time. In terms of learning German, of course, it's the same. It's just based on how much time you allocate and how intensely you study. Getting a job after Approbation, also the same. If you have the skills, if you have the German skills especially, you will find no difference. And then career progress as well. So preparing documents and getting them evaluated will be one thing where non-EU applicants are greatly disadvantaged. So these are some takeaways, and feel free to pause the video here. I just wrote down some things that you might want to still remember from this. So in principle, it is a process that requires a lot of paperwork. It is different for non-EU and EU applicants. EU applicants are processed a lot quicker. Non-EU applicants have the chance to take the Gutachten or the Kenntnisprüfung. Requires documentation more so than the EU one. Gutachten takes a lot of time, costs money, can be negative, but you don't have to take an exam. That is an advantage. You need to speak German in general on the B2 level, medicine specific on the C1 level. You need to have some formal requirements in place as well. And also in the first one, you need to have the formal permission to practice as a doctor in Germany. So these are the general takeaways for the process of getting Approbation. So to get the German medical license, which is a super complex, difficult process. And now a little deep dive on the non-EU educated applicants. So let's talk about the Gutachten and the Kenntnisprüfung in a little bit more detail for you to understand who it is for and who should choose what option. Like I said, Gutachten requires a large number of documents. It is evaluated. If it's positive, good, negative, you have to take the Kenntnisprüfung. Kenntnisprüfung requires less documents. It is an exam with practical and theoretical parts. It's not graded, only pass or no pass. If you pass it, you get the Approbation. If you don't pass it, you can retry it. If you fail those as well, process unfortunately ends for you. So the Gutachten, obviously there's no need to take an exam. Disadvantages, it takes a lot of documentation to be prepared, costs money, it takes a lot of time and still can be negative. The Kenntnisprüfung requires less effort in terms of preparing documents and costs less money and can be quicker also. Doesn't have to be, but can be quicker. But there's always the risk of not passing the exam. And I said it could be quicker, but it could also be a very long process as well, because waiting times for exam dates can also take a while. So these are the pros and cons of each option. And Gutachten is difficult to get for applicants from some countries. Why? This is because the basis for the Gutachten are the documents concerning your medical education. So your diploma and your curriculum. So your curriculum is a very important part of this process. It is a document by university that outlines all the content that you learned during your medical studies and is personalized to you. So they have to stamp it and write, person A completed this curriculum in their medical studies from this year to that year, and then it could be hundreds of pages where each subject, each course is outlined, what was taught, what was the outcome, and it also shows that you passed those things. So this is a very important document in this process. The challenge is for the authorities that sometimes they cannot verify whether or not these documents are authentic or not, because sometimes they can be forged, falsified, and they want to make sure that no one with forged documents gets the Approbation and gets to work as a medical doctor, even though that person might have never studied at a university. So there are two solutions for this. First, it's something called apostille, and the second is something called legalization. So these are methods by the embassy to make sure that your documents are not false, but actually correct. Apostille is a standardized and internationally used method of authenticating an official document. So it is done by an authority in a country that was appointed to do that. They just issue this piece of paper right here with the standard information and a seal and a stamp. And they put this on top of the documents. So you have this, if this is your document, they would put this cover page with the apostille on top of it. And by doing that, they show to the German authorities that this is an authentic document from our country, and you don't have to worry, you don't have to do any more research. We can verify that this is an authentic university curriculum, and you have all the rights to process it further because it is an authentic document. And these apostilles are used by all the countries that are part of the Hague Convention. And let's say country A is part of the Hague Convention, puts an apostille on it, and this is then accepted by German authorities. Perfect. If there is a country B that is not part of the Hague Convention, they don't issue apostilles. Therefore, the German authorities cannot accept it, and they require legalization. There could also be a third case where a country is part of the Hague Convention, but Germany does not accept their apostilles, so they issue one, but Germany says, no, from your country we don't accept the apostille. That is the case, for example, for India. That means that they also don't accept the document, and they also require the applicant to do a legalization. What is a legalization? That is a complex multi-step process of authenticating documents. That means that, for example, you have the curriculum from your university, and in your country there's a set sequence of how this legalization should go. First of all, you would get a stamp from the Ministry of Education. Then the Ministry of Justice is authenticating the stamp of the Ministry of Education. Then the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is authenticating the stamp of the Ministry of Justice. And then in the end, the German embassy is authenticating the stamps as well. And then this document with all these stamps are then sent to Germany, and the authorities in Germany can say, okay, the process of legalization was done, all the authorities that are needed put their stamp on it, it's authentic, we can now use it. Germany does not offer legalization for every country. I think India is also a country that does not have the option to get their documents legalized. So this is for countries that they cannot get the apostille. They can use legalization if legalization is possible. But this is also a process that takes time and takes a lot of effort. I did the statistics in 2021, so this might not be completely correct everywhere, but apostille is used in 73 countries, so these could get the Gutachten if they wanted to. The apostille is not possible, and legalization is used. That's the case for 39 countries. They could get the Gutachten through this, and there are 53 countries where Germany doesn't accept or offer apostilles or doesn't accept legalizations from those countries. These are 53 countries, and Gutachten will not be possible most likely for applicants from this country. And here are the countries where apostille is used and accepted in Germany. These are the countries where apostille is not accepted or not possible and where legalization is used. And these are the countries where neither apostille nor legalization are accepted by German authorities, and therefore those two options are not possible. And I put the example of India down there. It is one of the biggest countries where Germany doesn't accept either of those methods. So what happens when neither those two options are possible? Number one, you just take the KP, the Kenntnisprüfung. Second is the process of called Amtshilfe. That's another process. The process of Amtshilfe works like this. The state office in Germany where the applicant applied to is contacting the embassy from where the applicant is from. The embassy is using local resources to find out whether or not a document is authentic or not, and the result of the investigation will be feedbacked to the embassy that will then send the result to the state office in Germany that can then determine whether or not those documents are authentic or not. This is a very long and costly process as well, and the thing is that it cannot be started by the applicant. So the applicant cannot ask, oh, can I please get the Amtshilfe? It has to be started by the state offices, and they will not always do it because it's a very complex process, and if they do it for every applicant, it would take a lot of time. I think legally they are obliged to do it. I'm not 100% sure on that, but they should actually do it if those two other options are not possible. But in the very least, they will, I think, not prioritize those with this type of situation, and the people who have the easier route where can get through quicker, they will probably use those people or process those applications first, where this long process doesn't have to be taken. So this is a detour into the whole process of document authentication. It is not super interesting, but it is a very relevant topic for anyone who is from a non-EU country and wants to take the Gutachten and is thinking about ways of how they can do it. So that was just an overview on that topic. There are further important topics for non-EU educated applicants. The first one is called Berufserlaubnis, which is a temporary work permit that is limited to 2 years. So it allows to practice as a doctor under the supervision of a doctor with Approbation already. So the doctor is limited in the things they can do. And the applicant needs to pass the FSB exam, which I explained earlier, which is the language exam for the German medical language skills. And this permit needs to be applied for, and it is only valid in the state in which it was issued. Sometimes it's even connected to a specific job in a hospital, but you cannot go to another state with this Berufserlaubnis and work there. And this is an intermediate goal on the way to receive Approbation. So for example, you pass the FSB exam and then you get the Berufserlaubnis, but in the meanwhile you are preparing for the KP exam, which will then give you the final full medical license. And it might take a while to prepare for this and wait for the exam. So to already work as a doctor during this time frame, they have given out this Berufserlaubnis to not make you wait for 2 years, but also to already get some more skills and experience in working as a doctor in Germany, improve your language skills, and also be able to financially sustain yourself in Germany. And this is an important topic for non-EU educated applicants. It is not issued for EU educated applicants. And then the second big part is obviously the visa. This is obviously not the case for people who are EU citizens and received a non-EU education, but most of the time if you received the education in a non-EU country, that also means that you are a non-EU citizen. So you will need a visa, and this is necessary for anyone who wants to enter Germany and is not from the EU, EEA or Switzerland. And it is needed especially if your stay is intended to be longer than 90 days, which it will be if you're going through the process of Approbation, most likely. Some countries like US, Canada, Japan, they can enter without a visa, but then they will have to apply for the residence permit or for the kind of permit that is relevant for them when they arrive in Germany. But most countries will have to apply for visa prior, and then this visa allows them to come here to Germany and then switch it to a residence permit. What is not possible is to just come here on a tourist visa, for example, and then switch a tourist visa to some other visa. That is a bad idea. You should do the planning beforehand, look at the right visas, and not just come here and then try to manage something while you're here. Think about those things prior to coming here, and then you will not run into the issue of being kicked out of the country because you had the wrong visa. And this will also look bad next time you apply for a visa at the embassy, because they will see that you came here with an invalid visa and then you wanted to change and it wasn't possible. So really think about how you will approach this topic. And according to the visa handbook that is issued by the German Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there are a number of visa possibilities in theory that apply to doctors. However, the first ones here, which would be really great options, obviously, the blue card, job seeker visa, employment visa, these are only relevant for doctors who already have the Approbation or the Berufserlaubnis, which in most cases will not be the most people, because if you have it, chance that you go back to your country and then want to come back might be the case, but for most people will not be the case. So these will not be kind of a focus of this presentation. Then you have the 16D visa, which is a visa for the recognition of foreign professional qualification. So this is a visa that is perfect for anyone who has started the process and has received the early result that they still need to complete some steps in Germany in order to become a fully accepted medical doctor in Germany. Because this visa allows to come to Germany and complete some training in order to close all the gaps that are still there in order to become fully recognized as a professional in Germany. So this is the preferable visa and also the main focus of what I will talk in the section number 5, because this is the most straightforward visa. Then we have the language visa right here. It's a 16F visa. This could also be possible. There are some downsides to it. It could be that if they see at the embassy that you're a doctor and you want to apply for it, they want to see that you also already have something called Defizitbescheid, which you will only get later in the process, and you might get rejected if you don't have it. And it could be a possibility. I will also highlight it in section number 4 as one of the possible strategies, but it is not as straightforward of an option as the 16D visa, which is why I won't pay too much attention to it. Hospitation as well, there is no specific visa for that. It is, even in the handbook, it is a kind of a residence permit that doesn't have a specific title because there is no hospitation specific visa or residence permit. Hospitation is something where you go to a hospital to just observe, you don't do anything, it is for learning purposes. I choose not to make this a focus of this for now. The family reunification visa is perfect for anyone who already has a spouse, so a husband or wife living in Germany. It's super easy then, you only have to complete a couple of things and you can come to Germany and even work here. Obviously this will not be the case for probably most of the applicants. If you have the option, then this is a great visa to come here and the one that you should be using. And then the study visa is for those who say, I can take a more longer term approach on this process. I might not have a family that I need to support financially, so I come here to Germany, get enrolled in a master's course, for example, in a topic that I want to use for my career further along. And when I get to Germany, I will start the process of Approbation. That means I don't have to send all the documents from my home country to Germany and then deal with them via post over country borders, and I can just go to the office when I'm here and deal with things in person here in Germany. And this could be also an option for some people. So if you have not immediate pressure to now already start work as a doctor again, but you want to come here, settle down, enroll in the course, and then do all these things around this Approbation process in person in Germany, then the study visa could be an option for you as well. And if you are combining all the different factors, actually I should add EU country here as well, if you're combining your medical education, your nationality, the mode of evaluation, and the visa, I came up with 15 possible approaches, differentiating between people who got the EU education and non-EU education, the nationality from EU, non-EU, different evaluation modes, different visas. So 15 possible approaches, strategies that I identified that could be used. Not each approach will be applicable for everyone. Some will have 2, 3, other people with a different profile only have 1. And this will be the focus of the next part 4. So this was a longer part. I hope that this was not too much information. Rewind and go through it again to points that you might have missed or that were still unclear to you. And in general, the process of Approbation is a process that has a lot of different factors and variables and parameters determining it, and managing all of those in a way that you can still have a overview and a structure and transparency is key, which is why I think we should go to the next part of this video where I explain all the different approaches that are possible in my opinion. Welcome to part 4 of this video. In this part I show you all the possible approaches that I have identified that a doctor from abroad could use to get into Germany, and not all of these approaches are suitable for everyone. It depends on what your personal nationality is and also where you received your medical education, so whether or not you are a national of the EU or non-EU, and if you received your medical education in the EU or outside of the EU. And based on that, there are different options that you could take, one being easier, the other one maybe being a little bit more difficult. So let's start by going through them. The first one, and also the one that I will talk about in the next part, is the 16D visa and Kenntnisprüfung. This means that in terms of getting your education recognized, you will take the Kenntnisprüfung, which is the exam, where you will not take the Gutachten, which is a paper-based evaluation. And in order to do this, you will get the 16D visa that allows you to come to Germany to spend the time preparing and taking those exams in order to get first the Berufserlaubnis and then afterwards the Approbation. So this path is pretty straightforward, which is why I will also talk about it in detail in the next part. And this is a suitable approach for people who are nationals of a country outside the EU. So they require a visa for Germany, and also someone who received their medical education in a country outside of the EU, or should I say the EU plus Switzerland, Norway, Liechtenstein, Iceland. So if you fall into this category, this might be a path for you. The second path is similar, however, in terms of the recognition of your medical education, you would take the Gutachten. So you would take the detailed paper-based evaluation and you would not take the Kenntnisprüfung. This would mean that in the beginning of this journey, you would have to wait a longer period of time, potentially in your home country, until you receive the results of this Gutachten. So the Gutachten can take up to 1 year or longer, according to official sources, and you would have to wait until you get the result to see what your next moves are. And if your result is positive, then you can continue in this journey. If it was negative, then you would have to kind of change into path 1, because it would mean that you would have to take the Kenntnisprüfung. So this is for anyone who is willing to wait, willing to invest the money to get all the documents ready to have the Gutachten performed for them, and also someone willing to take the risk that you wait for a while and then the result is negative and then you go into the Kenntnisprüfung exam anyways. So this is for anyone who wants to do this. Then the third part is the 16F plus 16D visa and Kenntnisprüfung. And this is a kind of modulation of the first path. Here you would get to Germany earlier because you would get the 16F visa, which is a visa for language learning. And then you would get to Germany earlier and then start the process here also. And let's go to path number 3, which is the 16F plus 16D visa and the Kenntnisprüfung. So it's similar to the first one. Difference here being that you get to Germany earlier because you take the 16F visa, which is a visa for language learning. So you come here to learn the language, and then while in Germany you switch it to 16D and later on take the Kenntnisprüfung. This visa used to be, or this approach used to be popular in the past. If you look at the official documents, there might be some risk associated with this. So the language visa is a visa that is primarily for the purpose of learning German in Germany and then returning. So this always used to be kind of problematic, telling people you get the 16F visa, because oftentimes then people would get this visa and then the visa would run out and they would try to change it into another visa in Germany and it wouldn't work because the authorities said, oh, this is only for language learning, you have to return. So in any case, this would have to be really well planned out beforehand, and authorities would have to know what your process is that you want to take. So they would have to know that you get to Germany first on the 16F visa, and then you change it to a 16D visa, and then you take the Kenntnisprüfung. So you cannot leave anyone in the dark with your plans. However, it could be that they reject your application for the 16F visa because in the visa handbook by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in the past it used to say that you would need a Defizitbescheid, which is a document you only get later on in the journey. So this would be complicated. And in the newest version of it, from August of this year, 2022, the 16F visa is not even mentioned anymore as a possible visa for kind of the doctors coming to Germany. The advantage of this journey would be that you would be in Germany earlier and learning German more quickly, and you get used to the culture, and you are able to also maybe make first contact with hospitals, have a hospitation maybe, or to already have contacts in the hospitals for potential jobs afterwards. However, you would then have to spend time in Germany for longer while you don't earn any money, because the 16F visa only allows you to come here for language learning. It does not allow you to work in any way and to earn money. So this is only for someone who is, number one, willing to take the risk that this is not really possible and might be complicated afterwards if you want to change it to 16D visa, and someone willing to take on the kind of financial burden of being in Germany without working for a more extended period of time. If you choose to do it, you would have the advantage of being in Germany earlier, learning the language maybe more quickly than you were at home, and being in Germany makes the process easier because you are able to really have all the things that you need to do, be able to do them in person, not doing them between country borders. So this is the third path that you could take. The fourth option would be the study visa and the Kenntnisprüfung. So this means that you come to Germany to enroll in a master's program, for example, and you study here. And while you are enrolled in the university and studying, you start the process of getting the Approbation here in Germany, and later on you first get the Berufserlaubnis, and then you get the Approbation via the Kenntnisprüfung, which is the exam. And this is for anyone who is willing to go back to university for a while, not to work as a doctor, but to be in Germany, get integrated into society, learn the language easier, and just handle the process within Germany. And this obviously would mean that you wouldn't work as a doctor for a while, but it would kind of ease you into the process of coming to Germany, and you will probably study for 2 years if it's a master's program, which would be time then to really start the process and get through the process of getting the Approbation. This is for anyone who is willing to take this time commitment and is also maybe interested in learning additional skills on top of their medical profession. So this would be something for them. Also, getting admission to a study program for a master's could be maybe easier than starting this whole process from abroad. Also, getting admission to a master's program might not be such a big hurdle, so you get to Germany more quickly. However, there will be differences. It will be a lot tougher to get into a public university master program, which will not cost money, versus a private university where you will have to pay money. So this would be an even bigger money and time commitment. However, for anyone who's willing to do this, this is also a path that they could take. The fifth option is the family reunion visa and the Kenntnisprüfung. This is for anyone who already has a spouse living in Germany. So if your husband or your wife is already living in Germany, then this would be the straightforward visa. You will only have to learn German till the level of A1, so the very basic level, to get this visa, and then you can come here. You can also work as a full-time capacity already, not as a doctor, but in any other job. So you would be in Germany, learn the language, earn money, start the process. This is for anyone who is in the fortunate situation to have a spouse living in Germany already, and this will naturally limit the number of people who are able to get this visa. However, if you're in the situation that you are able to get this, then this would be the most straightforward one. Option number 6 is the study visa and the Gutachten. So this is similar to number 4. Instead of taking the KP, the Kenntnisprüfung, however, you are choosing the Gutachten, which is the paper-based evaluation of your medical education. So you're hoping that this will be positive, so you don't have to take the Kenntnisprüfung, that you only have to take the FSP to get the Approbation. This, of course, requires a little bit more money investment to get the translation for the documents. Also has the risk of being negative, then you would have to take the Kenntnisprüfung exam anyways, which would then make the whole process longer again. The advantage of being a student or being someone who finished their studies at a German university is that after finishing, you have 18 months in Germany still to work and to find a proper job. So if the Gutachten is not successful and you have to take the Kenntnisprüfung and it takes a longer time, you wouldn't run out of time if you start the whole process early enough. So if you started shortly after arriving in Germany, this would give you 2 years for the studying and 18 months for the process of finding a job or having time in Germany after finishing your studies. So this would be almost 4 years. So if you apply for the Gutachten very early on, then you could mitigate the risk of running out of time when the Gutachten is negative. So this is for anyone who is willing to not work as a doctor, spend time studying, and also invest the money into the Gutachten. Path number 7 is similar to path number 5. If you have a spouse living in Germany, family reunion visa is the option to go to. And if you're willing to spend the money and wait for the results for a while, the Gutachten option would be the one. Again, if it's negative, you would have to take the KP. If it's positive, good for you. You only have to take the FSP to get the Approbation. Path number 8 is for people who are not citizens of the EU, however, they received their medical education in the European Economic Area. So this is the EU plus Liechtenstein, Norway, Iceland, or Switzerland. So these people go through the much easier process of getting their education recognized. However, they will also have to take the FSB, the language exam, and since they're not a national of the EU, they will need a visa, and you will have the 16D visa as an option. So you come here, you study for the FSB, you pass it, and then you are able to get the Approbation. So this is a special case for someone who studied in the EU but is not a national of an EU country. This would be an option to take. Path number 9 would be a 16F visa and just a process for EU or EEA and Swiss educated doctors. This would be just a language learning visa. There is really no need why you should take this over the 16D, but I just wanted to point it out as in terms of completeness. This is kind of for language learning or taking language exams, which the FSB is. So you'd come here and study towards the FSB and take it, and if you have passed it, you would get the Approbation, which you would then take to get the residence permit for the purpose of working in Germany, since you will be a doctor. And the one difference is between the 16D and the 16F is that the 16D visa allows you to work a little bit of time during the week in any type of job to earn some money, and the 16F visa doesn't allow to work in a job. So if you have the choice, a 16D visa most of the time would make more sense to get. Path number 10 is if you are a citizen of the European Economic Area or Switzerland and you have received your education outside the EU, then you would not need any visa naturally. You would only have to take the Kenntnisprüfung, which you can prepare for in your home country. However, probably it would make sense to, in order to learn the language and get used to the German way of working as a doctor, to spend some time prior to that in Germany in order to go through the exam successfully. After you have passed the exam, you would be able to get the Approbation. And even before that, you would have to take the FSP, for which you would also need to spend some time in Germany, ideally, and you would then be able to get the Berufserlaubnis, which you could use to prepare yourself for the KP. So this would be for anyone who doesn't need a visa but received education outside the EU. You would need to take, or you could take this path. And close to that is path number 11, where you are in a similar situation, but you choose the Gutachten. In this case also you'd have to come to Germany to pass the FSP, and you would need to spend some time ideally prior to the FSP to get here. And once you have passed the FSP, you could work on the basis of Berufserlaubnis as a doctor in a limited role, and then wait for the results of the Gutachten to come back to you. If it's negative, you would have to take the KP, but you wouldn't have to worry about any type of visa running out because you don't need a visa. If you are a EEA or Swiss national and you also received your education in one of these countries, then you will have the easiest path out of all the applicants, because you just need to submit the documents from your university. It will be recognized as almost automatically as equally, and you would only have to pass the FSB exam, and then you would get the Approbation. So this is the most straightforward one if you are lucky to be in the situation. Path number 13 is a special case. So if you are a citizen of the USA, Canada, Japan, Israel, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, then you are also a non-EU citizen. However, you have the chance to come to Germany without a visa and then apply for the residence permit for a particular purpose in Germany. You would have to do this within the first 90 days of your arrival in Germany. Advise you to do it very early on, because the process can take time in the public state offices in Germany to get all of these things ready. And in this case, you would prepare for the 16D residence permit. So it's very similar to the path number 1 that I showed earlier. The only difference being that you don't need to apply for the visa prior to coming to Germany, but you could come here and then apply for the 16D residence permit. However, you will need to have all the things that the 16D visa requires in place in order to get it. So you'll not get it automatically. All the things you would have to present for the visa application in the country, you would have to now just present to the state office in Germany when you arrive. And afterwards, you would have to take the FSB, pass it, work on basis of the Berufserlaubnis. While doing so, prepare for the Kenntnisprüfung, take the Kenntnisprüfung, and once you've passed it, you will get the Approbation. Path number 14 is similar to path number 3, I think it was. Yes, so if you want to come to Germany even earlier and to learn the language, you could get the 16F visa prior to the 16D visa. However, like I also said earlier on, might be risky, might not even be able to get it anymore at the current state of the visa policies, and you would need to spend more time in Germany where you could not work in any capacity. And the final path is also for a citizen of those countries who is willing to take the Gutachten and is willing to wait for the results. In this case also, you could come to Germany without a visa, apply for the 16D visa, and ideally you would wait for the result of the Gutachten before coming here, because you would then know what your options are. If it's positive, you come here, apply for the FSB exam, take it, and you have the Approbation. If not, then you would need to take the Kenntnisprüfung exam to get the Approbation. In general, if you are from one of those countries, chance of Gutachten being positive probably higher than if you are from maybe some other countries. However, this is not a guarantee. Welcome to part number 5 of this video. Like I said, I will now take a deeper look at the 16D visa and Kenntnisprüfung path. And here you can see an overview of the different phases of this journey and all the steps which in a phase, the duration for each step, and also the sequence of the steps. So you will see here, up here we have the phases 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then here we have the steps or activities 1 through 6. Here you can see which step it is. You can see the duration, and these blue bars here indicate the sequence. So for example, you see here all these steps are done in parallel, and then the very last step is done at the end. Or for example, here you can see that these two are done in parallel, and then these two start right after, and then after these ones are finished, this one starts, and after this one is finished, this one starts. So this is what these blue bars are for, to give an indication of what the sequence of the steps are. And you can also see for each duration what this phase will cost. So this includes all the expenditures that you will have to pay for getting the Approbation. So all the official documents, the exams and so forth. And also when you get to Germany later on, this also includes the cost of living in Germany, because I think this is important to know. And this also shows the income you will make in each phase. Now, this is assuming that you already work as a doctor in your home country. So all the phases that take place in your home country, I have assumed that you will have, after all the expenses, you will earn kind of 1,000 euros. So this is kind of what I have taken as a baseline assumption, that you will save up 1,000 euros each month if you are in your home country, or you have a surplus of 1,000 euros, let's say it like this. And I will now go through each step and tell you what is important to pay attention to, what it entails, and in order to give you a better understanding and a better structure of what this journey could look like. One thing I have to add is that there are a lot of assumptions based on official data, like the durations and the costs, and this is not a guarantee that it will always take this amount of time for each step that I presented here, or that it will cost exactly the amount that I say it will cost. This is just here to give you a more or less baseline assumption of what this could take in terms of time and money, and what the steps are. Even the sequence of the steps could be different for you, and this is a first guidance and understanding and structuring of your journey. And if there's anything on your journey that is kind of deviating or it's changing, then you would have to find a different approach within the journey. But I hope that this already gives you a better understanding of what are the big things that I need to pay attention to. And also one thing to add is that at the end of each phase there is a milestone, so each phase has a definite ending. And this is to make it more clearly that phases don't overlap too much. So let's begin with phase number 1. This obviously starts with preparing all the documents that you need for the Approbation. This in terms only of the KP. So if you were to apply for the Gutachten, you would require more documents, but you only apply for the KP. That's why you prepare the documents that are needed for that. And you will also apply and put together the documents for the Berufserlaubnis. So this will only be relevant later on. Again, the Berufserlaubnis is a temporary work permit, and I think it is good to already apply in this early stage. You will not get it, and they will say, oh, documents are still missing, but at least your application is already there, so that when you apply later on with all the missing documents, it might be that it is processed more quickly, rather than if you start from the very early beginning and also start only to put together documents later on in the journey. If you have everything in place already in the beginning, it might save you time later on. And the second part is the learning German. So learning German till B2 in the home country is important, because I think, and there is some feedback that I receive from state offices, that the application might not be processed until you have reached the B2 level. So it could be that they accept the application, but they will say, we received it. As soon as you submit the B2, we will start processing it. So you can save yourself some time, because if you submit the documents, you don't have the B2, and you wait for the feedback, and then you hand in the certificate, and then they start processing, you will have lost time. So rather learn the German skills, or learn German till B2 rather early on, so that you have less risk that it will cause a delay because they're waiting for something. Again, this does not have to be the case. It could be that they process it without the B2, and this would save you time, because the duration of this phase, it is dependent on the learning German. So learning German is kind of the step that is dictating how long this phase will take, but you will maybe de-risk it a little bit if you already do the B2 in this very early stage and then submit all the documents once you have the B2. The 8.5 months are based on the assumption that you study for 2 hours a day, and then you take the exam at the end, the official exam. Again, this is a baseline assumption based on official data. Could be more, could be less for any person who is on this journey. Then the third step, which is the proof of responsibility. And I already told you earlier that the process is done in each state on an individual basis. So there are 16 states in Germany, and you apply for this Approbation in one state. So you go through the process in one state. One thing that those states need, which makes this process kind of complex early on already, and unnecessarily complex, but it is the way it is that those states require proof that they are actually responsible for your application. So state of Bavaria says, well, give us proof that actually you want to come to Bavaria, you have applied for jobs here, you have already a job offer here, hospitals are interested in you as a person, there's a chance that you will stay in Bavaria after you get your Approbation. Why do we have to process your application? And this is because they don't want to process applications that actually you want to go somewhere else, and then they are not responsible for anymore, but another state is. So this is kind of, I think it's German technicalities, but it is important that you provide some proof that you are actually willing to go to the state and work in the state. So ideally this would be a job offer, which will not be the case realistically, because you have not Approbation yet, you don't have all the language skills yet, but at least get some positive feedback that hospitals are interested in you as soon as you get your Approbation. So maybe a letter of intent saying, hey, as soon as you receive your Approbation, we would be happy to employ you, or at least some applications that you send out to hospitals and the positive feedback you received from them, something to show them that you are actually have the realistic plan of going to the state and staying in the state. So this can be a tricky step, because you don't have all the language skills yet. You probably have not a lot of contacts in Germany, and you are still far away from actually being able to work in Germany. So you are not in a strong position to get this positive feedback, but it will be worthwhile to put in the effort, because you will receive kind of this proof of responsibility, so your application is processed. And also later on, it will help immensely if you build contacts early on in the process, because later on you will come to Germany, you will have to find a place to either do hospitations, just so to be around and observe doctors, to learn a lot about how hospitals in Germany function, language skills. You might be able to then, if you have the Berufserlaubnis, get a job based on that more quickly, because you already know people and hospitals in Germany, you already have contacts. And as soon as there is maybe some challenge in the process, if you have a hospital that is interested in employing you, they might help you with the correspondence between you and the state office to resolve some issues. So getting contact with potential employers is super important, and you cannot start early enough, because you will make mistakes in terms of the application, the documents, how you approach them. So make those mistakes early, learn from them, and then get a lot of good contacts in Germany that will help you immensely later on in this process. And as soon as you have those three things in place, you have the language certificate, you have the proof of responsibility, you have all the documents prepared, you can send it out. And this is the final milestone for this phase. You send out the application for Approbation. And this will cost based on the documents you need to prepare in terms of authenticating, translating, and also the German learning. You will have to pay for the language classes. Of course, there will be roughly 7,500 euros that you will have to invest. It's quite a lot of investment upfront. A lot of it has to do with obviously language learning and translation of your documents into German. Assuming that you work and you have a surplus of 1,000 euros per month, you are still on the positive side though. And then we get to the second phase, which is mainly about waiting for the feedback on your application. Based on official data that I found online, it is about 5 months. In the meanwhile, what you already should start to do is research FSB preparation courses. So remember, FSB is the language exam that you need to pass. And in order to do that, you should come to Germany and then enroll in a preparation class that helps you to prepare for this examination, which you will then take after a while in Germany. And you should already start researching them now, because as soon as you get your feedback, you have to start the visa process, and then you should submit all the kind of the booking confirmations that you have something already planned in Germany for when you arrive. And also, while waiting, you should continue to learn German. So try to constantly improve your German skills and not to slip down again to a lower level maybe. Try to constantly build on what you learn, and just make it a habit of having German in your life, so you can, when you get to Germany, have already a good command of the language. This phase is finalized by receiving a document from the state office, which is a Defizitbescheid. Now, a Defizitbescheid is, if you translate it, a notice of deficits. So it is a document that is stating that you still have some deficits in regard to getting the Approbation. So we'll say, we received your application, these things are still missing, you need to complete those things. Now, there is not a fixed document format, and you will rarely find something with a heading saying Defizitbescheid that is sent out by the state offices, which is oftentimes confusing, and the term Defizitbescheid is used in different formats for different documents depending on the state. So it is important for you to just know that you need to receive a feedback from the state offices in Germany on your application that is clearly noting that there are still some things missing. And one thing should be that you still need to show that you have the official German language or the official medical German skills, for which you need to pass the FSB exam. Because later on, when you apply for the visa, the embassy will look for if you have the Defizitbescheid that says you need the FSB, and if you have something booked in Germany, which is kind of a preparation for the FSB, and also the FSB exam date. So they will look for, does the office in Germany say that this person needs to pass the FSB, and then does this person have FSB exam date planned, and do they have preparation measures already in place? So getting this Defizitbescheid is super important for the visa process later on. After you receive the Defizitbescheid, you will go into the third phase, which is about mainly the whole visa process. And the first step would be to apply for the FSB exam. So once you get the feedback from the state office, you would then use that to apply for the FSB exam. It is not possible to apply without it. You cannot just apply freely without anything and just pay the money. You need to get the feedback from the state office that you need to pass the FSB exam, and you then take this document and apply through the state office directly or through the doctors association within the state. So there's an association of doctors which in each state, and they are the ones organizing and running this FSB exam. So either the state office puts you in touch with them, or you contact them directly with this document that you receive from the state office, so that they give you or they put you on the waiting list for an FSB exam. And they will oftentimes ask you when you want to take or when you will be ready to take this exam, or you should, at least if they don't ask you, be very upfront when you want to take the exam. Because if they say, oh, you will get it in 4 weeks, this might not be enough time, because you have to get the visa sorted out, you have to come to Germany, those kinds of things. So you need to plan a little bit on when you want to take this exam. And the things that you should consider is how long you will have to wait until you get your visa, and how much time do you want to spend in Germany preparing for this FSB exam. So basically, how long will the rest of this phase 3 take, and how long will phase 4 take me? And this is what you should calculate and tell them, now I am in January, for example, this will take a couple of months to get my visa, depending on where you are, and I want to have 3.5 months in Germany to prepare for it. So let's say I want to take it in August, or I want to take it in July. If you say 3.5 months plus maybe 3.5 months that you need to wait for your visa, in 7 months I want to take the exam. So this is what you should be very upfront, because otherwise they might just give you an exam and you have to try to make all the pieces fit together in order to make it happen. So rather have an own understanding of what your journey looks like, and be very upfront and strong about your statement of when you want to take the exam. And this would be the first step of this phase. Then also book an FSP preparation and C1 course. This is important because the embassy wants to see how you will use your time on the 16D visa in Germany. So the 16D visa is made to come to Germany and take part in preparation courses that help you to get your qualification recognized. So it is important to show them that you have already booked preparation measures in Germany. And it would be good to come to Germany and do these C1 course and the FSB, because it will give you very strong language basis and foundation to build on. You will have a very strong German command, and it will give you some time to kind of get integrated or get used to Germany initially, and it will give you time to prepare for the FSB exam. And those two things then in total should be a couple of months. I calculated in the phase number 4, it will be 3.5 months that you will take to complete these two things. But it's important to have something that is of longer duration. If you just book a course that is for 2 weeks, they will say, oh yeah, your 16D visa might be valid for 2 weeks only. That's a very short amount of time. So make sure that you have booked things that take up quite some time, or at least some time that you are able to settle down and prepare for it properly, and so that the duration of the visa is not super short. Then what you need to do is to also book and wait for the 16D visa appointment. So you have to do this via the embassy, the website of the embassy. Depending on where you are, this can be quite easy or very difficult. And so you have to see how the system works for the German embassy in your country. And in parallel to that, also prepare all the documents for the 16D visa. And this will ideally be for a 12-month duration you should aim for. So even though the visa only says it is, or the phase 4 is only for 3.5 months, for example, you could say, I want to have a longer duration, because what if I fail, and what happens if some things don't work out. So apply for the full year of duration. You could, if you wanted to, maybe do the 6 months, but I calculated the 12 months here, and you will have to prepare all the documents for that as well. So there goes into the FSB preparation booking, the C1 course preparation booking, the Defizitbescheid that you received from the embassy, and those kinds of things. But you have to look up the documents on the website of the embassy that are telling you what you need for the 16D visa. Then you will have your appointment where they will interview you, and you will have to give a good explanation of what you are planning to do in Germany once you arrive. So you have to be clear about, okay, I applied for Approbation, this is what I did, this is what I got as a feedback, therefore I did 1, 2, 3 things in order to take the next step, which would be come to Germany, take the FSP preparation course, take a C1 course, take the exam, and then start working on basis of Berufserlaubnis. So you will have to be very clear of what did I do, what is my background, where am I coming from, where am I now currently, and what are the steps forward, what will I specifically do in Germany to get to my goal. And depending on how your visa interview goes, you will get a decision for which you have to wait for a certain period of time, again depending on where you're from, in which embassy you applied for, in which country. And once you have the positive visa decision, you will have to then prepare your transfer to Germany, which can take, well, I calculated 1 month, could be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe longer. So find accommodation for the first arrival, book the flights, get insurance, those kinds of things. And in total, I have put the duration for this at 7 months, which is mainly driven by waiting for the visa appointment and then waiting for the visa decision. So these are numbers, the 3 months for each of these 2 steps I got from the official embassy data as kind of an average. Could be a lot longer for some countries, could be a lot shorter for other countries. And in terms of costs, this has a lot of costs that you need to provide, or a lot of money that you need to have at this point already. This is mainly due to the fact that you need to prepare your visa documents for 12 months, and this requires you to have a blocked account. And a blocked account is money that is account that you put money into, and once you arrive in Germany, each month 1/12 of this amount is paid out to you. So this is a way for the German government to make sure that you have enough money for your stay in Germany. So you put a bigger sum in the beginning with your visa application, and then once you arrive, you will get paid out this money. So this is there to make sure that you are actually able to cover your living expenses. So this is why at this point you would already have to get a lot of money. It is not lost. You will get to use it for your living in Germany, but you have to provide it at this point already. This is why this phase has a higher amount of expenditures. And this phase ends with you arriving in Germany, which would bring us to phase number 4, which is then the first phase that you would have in Germany. And this would entail that you attend the FSP and the C1 courses, and you wait for the FSP exam. So really study hard, also try to speak German as much as possible in your everyday life. And also what you should start doing is to kind of reconnect with contacts that you had from the very early on in the first phase, maybe that you had a lot of contacts from in hospitals. Again, apply for them or contact them as if you can do hospitations, so meaning observing them, and also explain to them your situation, that you're about to take the FSB exam and that you plan to apply for the Berufserlaubnis afterwards, and if there's a possibility for you to work in the hospital based on the Berufserlaubnis. So very early on when you arrive, do this, reconnect with old connections and get new ones saying, hey, this is my situation. I'm a doctor from abroad, now in Germany, applying for FSP. Once I pass it, I will apply for BE, and then I will be able to work on the basis of BE, so Berufserlaubnis. What are the chances? Is there possibility for me to apply or to work in your hospital? So you would have to really start doing this, because this will be super important, because this phase is one of the phases where you will spend money but not earn money. So I put the costs here at roughly 3,000 euros because in phase 3 we learned that you have to put a blocked account in place that will pay you out money, but it's only roughly 900 euros per month, which I think is not enough to cover your living expenses. So this is only the official amount that the embassy gives. But if you go to official statistics, it's rather 1,700 euros. Now with inflation, these were numbers from last year, might be even higher. So you will probably have to spend even more than that, than what you put in the blocked account in phase number 3. So additionally, there are 3,000 euros that you have to pay, and you will not be able to earn a lot of money. So if you're here on the 16D visa, you're allowed to work 10 hours per week in some in a job. You cannot work as a doctor, but in some other jobs. So you might be able to work a little bit. However, if you are busy with preparing for the exam and doing hospitations and going to your German courses, you might not have time to work. So you have to prepare yourself that this is one of the phases, phase 4, where you are spending money, but you're not earning money. So the goal of the journey should always be to minimize those phases as much as possible. Unless you have a lot of money, you're a millionaire, you don't care about it then. You don't have to worry about this, but I think not most people are in this situation. So be conscious about this fact that phase 4 is one of the ones where you are actually spending a lot more money and you're not earning any money. So this phase then ends with you taking and passing the FSB exam. And once you have done that, you get into phase number 5, which is also a phase where you don't earn money, you only spend money. And this is now the phase where you really have to start ramping up this whole job application and getting the Berufserlaubnis thing, because you will have then the FSB, which is great because it is required to get the Berufserlaubnis, but you will also need a job offer from a hospital in the state that you're in order to get the Berufserlaubnis. And now it comes in handy when you did a lot of work up front. So if you're in phase number 1, phase number 4, already were in contact, and throughout as well, 2 and 3, if you were in contact with hospitals, you have good contacts there, they know your situation, maybe they know your situation already before, and they say, hey, we are just waiting for you to pass the FSB exam. Once you have it, call us, we have all the paperwork ready, and then we can start. If you did not do this, this phase could take a while because they have to get to know you, they have to receive your application, give you feedback on the application and those kinds of things. So if you did your work prior to this, this will now really pay off because this will shorten the amount of this phase. Because once you have the job offer, you will have to hand in this with the FSB exam and wait for the Berufserlaubnis to arrive. And this can also take a while. So I calculated that this will be 2.75 months, so 2 months and 3 weeks. And this will also, again, be a phase where you spend money, but you don't earn money or not substantially. You could maybe work a little bit more than in phase 4 now because you don't have to apply, you don't have to prepare for the exam, and you don't have to attend the language courses. And this phase ends with you actually receiving the Berufserlaubnis and start working in the hospital on the basis of Berufserlaubnis. So again, you will be in a limited role. You will not be able to do everything that a fully trained doctor is going to be able to do. But you will start earning money, and you will be in the kind of everyday life as a doctor, which will help you immensely for the later stages. And this is also the point where you can switch your 16D visa or your 16D residence permit into a residence permit for employment. So this will be a different residence permit, which will allow you to earn money full time, and you will have the kind of restriction of 10 hours per week. And this will be for the duration of your Berufserlaubnis, and the Berufserlaubnis will be valid for 2 years. And this will be a huge milestone in your journey because you will be working as a doctor in Germany already and earn money, and you will get out of the phases where you don't earn money and you only spend money, and you will learn a lot more about working in Germany as a doctor, learn the language a lot better, and learn how to deal with patients. And this will be very helpful for the next phase, which is phase number 6. So this is mainly about you working in a hospital and applying and waiting for the KP, the Kenntnisprüfung. And the Kenntnisprüfung you will have to pass to get the full medical license, the Approbation. And you have to apply for it at the state office in the state that you're in, and you have to wait for the exam. So official data indicates it could be 1 year that you have to wait for it, could be longer, could be shorter, and really use the time working at a hospital to prepare for the KP, because the KP will be a real-life simulation of a patient case. You will have to talk to other doctors, you will have to talk to a patient, and these things you can already practice while working as a doctor in a hospital, and it's perfect to do so. And also this will be a phase where you will earn money and not just be spending money. So like I said on top here, I assume the money that you earn to be kind of the very starting salary of a doctor as an assistant doctor in Germany. Could be a little less, maybe could be a little more, but at least you will earn money. And if you are not kind of incredibly ramping up your expenses as well, this is a phase where you can, if you work for 12 months, you could spend or you could save a significant amount of money already for you. And this will end, this phase will end with you taking and passing the KP exam. And after you've done that, you will then be on the way to getting the Approbation. So you will have to wait for you to get the Approbation certificate, the full medical license, and then again apply for jobs and get a full-time offer. And then you can start working as a full-time doctor. And this will be the end of this journey, but will be the beginning of hopefully a long medical career in Germany. So this is the most straightforward option I see for non-EU doctors coming to Germany. There is always room to maybe do it a little quicker, do some things more in parallel. This is a kind of very, very safe approach. Only do this next step once you know that you have completed this current step. You could always send out your applications earlier. You could spend less time preparing for the FSB exam. You could start try to wait a shorter amount of time for the KP exam, all those kinds of things. And in total, this would take you 41 months from the very beginning till you actually have the Approbation. But remember, you would be starting to work on basis of the BE earlier than that. So it would be significant less time if you count the time till you can start to work as a doctor in some form in Germany. But if you go through the whole way, it will be 41 months, and there is always potential to maybe save up time. And you will spend 48,000 and you will earn 62,000, again, based on the assumptions I made. This could be different or will be different for any case. But this is a structure that I think is a straightforward one and is giving kind of a security in terms of, all right, you complete each phase and each step so that you can take the next steps. And this is already taking into account that some phases and some activities can take quite a while, such as waiting for the KP exam, waiting for feedback on your application, waiting for the visa documents, and those kinds of things. So I hope that this was helpful for you to understand what this phase and what this journey would entail. Okay, let's talk about the success factors and the things that you should pay attention to get through this journey more quickly and with more success. So apart from obviously having all the documents in place and all those kinds of things, I see two things as really important to pay attention to. The first thing would be focusing on learning German well, quickly, and keep on practicing German. So this will help you in many ways. Number one, it will help you in this first phase to get your application out. It will help you to get this proof of responsibility more quickly because you will be able to write better kind of application documents to hospitals, and you will be a more attractive candidate if you are able to write and present yourself in better spoken or written German. And it will help you in terms of understanding what the state officers write to you in terms of feedback. It just helps you to understand the process more easily, more quickly. It will help you to also understand the visa process better and to be more confident during the visa interview. So it will not be conducted in German per se, but you will have more confidence about who you are and this journey that you're on if you're already well versed in German, and the embassy will see that you already put in effort to learn German and you're already at a very good level. And once you arrive in Germany, it will make the preparation for the FSP easier. It will make getting in contact with hospitals a lot easier. And it will give you more confidence in this whole application process and this whole process of finding a job and a position to work in, or even being as a hospitation, just observing doctors. But this will be super important because you're not on this journey to get just a piece of document, which is a medical license. You are on this journey to find a job as a doctor. You want to work as a doctor. And for that, you will not only need this document, but you need to be in contact with people in Germany, talking German to them, interact with patients. And all of this is based on your ability to speak and write and read and understand German. And the better you are, the more positive feedback you will receive, and also you will feel a lot more confident about yourself. And this is such a long journey. It is super complex in my opinion, and it's very, very long. And there will be down phases where you feel like this is so much work and does it lead anywhere? And if you are confident about yourself, you will be able to withstand all these challenges that will definitely come along the way. And this will make this process easier, and you will increase your chances of earlier success a lot more if you are able to speak German. So use any chance you get to speak German early on. Read it, listen to it, watch something in German. Once you're in Germany, speak to people in German. Don't try to find a place where you can look for English speakers. Try to speak German as much as you can. This is a super, super important success factor that I think you should pay attention to. And then the second factor that I should point out, and I think you should pay attention to, is to get in contact with possible employers and hospitals early on. And this is super relevant again, because in the first phase you will need this proof of responsibility, but also later on, if you are actually then in Germany looking for places to get experience, to just observe, or to work on basis of BE, or to work then in terms of a full doctor with the Approbation already, it will always help to have these contacts. It will be more easy, more quickly that you get into these places, and it will be challenging in the beginning. So you rather want to move that challenge very early into your journey. You don't want to have this challenge later on. Get through the rough parts early on so that you can reap the benefits then when you arrive, and you can reap the benefits at the optimal point. So don't push this out because it feels uncomfortable, because you don't feel secure yet in your skills, and you kind of want to wait till it's perfect. Don't wait, because it will never be perfect, and the later you start, the longer you will have to wait for certain things, and the less your chances are that you will get a job offer quickly, or that you will get a position to work on a BE basis more quickly. Do those things early on, learn what works, what doesn't work, and then you can have a more easier journey later on. And so you have to overcome this maybe challenge and odd feeling of being in contact with people from another country who might not know you, and you will feel a little weird. Don't mind this, just do it. Get in contact, get contacts, and this will make it easier for you later on. And also be strategic of who you contact. So like I said in the very first part of this video, try to think about maybe regions and hospitals that might be more in need of people. So if you want to increase your chances, maybe look at hospitals that are not in the big cities, that are not in Munich, in Berlin, Hamburg, Frankfurt, because they are attractive to anyone coming from abroad because they know these places. And also they're attractive for German doctors coming from medical university or wanting to change jobs, because big cities are more attractive. So if you want to increase your chances, go to places where people are more desperate for doctors and looking for doctors. And those will oftentimes be maybe smaller places, more places in the countryside, and places that you might not heard of, and that might not sound as attractive in the beginning, but you will have an easier time getting your foot in the door with them, because they will have less applicants and they will look for people more urgently. So you will have better chances with them than if you go to the places that the big names that everyone knows, Charité and those kinds of places that have big brands, so to speak, because a lot of people will apply there. So be strategic of where you apply, and also if you go to smaller places, if you have your everyday life in those more countryside areas maybe, you will be forced to speak more German in everyday life as well, because people will not have such a good command of English on average, such as people living in the city. So if you go there, you will also have this added benefit of being forced to speak German more and more than you would if you would go to a more urban area. So I think this is also something that you should be mindful about, is where you apply and who you talk to, because you have to understand, for employers, you are not the most attractive kind of prospect at various stages along this journey, because you're not in Germany yet, maybe you don't speak the language yet perfectly, and you don't have a medical license yet perfectly. So you will need to get people who are more eager to take you on, and these are places usually where there is less demand for them, less demand or less supply of people to them. So maybe some places that don't sound as attractive might be the better choice after all. So be mindful about those two things. Learn the language more quickly and early on, and get in contact with possible employers early on and stay in contact with them, and also maybe look for employers that are not in the most attractive places, because they will be more eager to take you on and more accepting of someone who is not from Germany. So these are the things that I think you should pay attention to in order to make this journey a more successful one. Okay, let's talk about helpful resources that I put together in order to give you more structure and clarity along this journey. So in earlier parts, we already looked at this Google Sheet, and this is a document that I put together with all the research findings and knowledge that I have put together over the last 1.5 years. And this contains multiple sheets that have different topics. So I already talked about the doctor situation and the medical career and the process of getting Approbation. So all these slides, they are contained in this file. Also, all the possible journeys that I have identified are in this file, and they are all there in terms of what are the phases, what are the steps, what are the costs, what is the sequence of steps. So what I talked about for the 16D plus KP journey, this level of detail is there for all 15 possible journeys, so not just for the 16D plus the KP journey. Of course, I also have that one, and not only this overview, but each step has a dedicated set of slides where I describe this step in detail. So in total, there are more than 200 slides that are explaining this one particular journey step by step. So each slide will have multiple dozens of slides explaining them. So this is a detailed resource of how to go through this journey step by step. Also, there's an encyclopedia. So I put together 339 relevant questions on this journey, and I put down the answers and the sources where these answers are coming from. This is not limited to this number. This can increase in the future as more people have more questions, but for now there are roughly 340 of the most urgent questions, like where do I send my documents to, what are the exact addresses in Germany, how long will it take for me to learn German from A1 to A2, from A2 to B1, and those kinds of things. How much will it cost for this document in this state, and these kinds of things. So this is a detailed encyclopedia that will continue to grow in the future. Also, I added a sheet that is explaining how the costs for all the journeys are put together. So any time something is put down as a number value in euros, I have put together the sources on how this cost element is put together and where this number is coming from. Also likewise, the document costs, which is quite a significant part of the cost for this journey. I had a breakdown of all the different possibilities that you can have your document. So if you apply for the KP, or you apply for the Gutachten, or you apply for the EU option, and also if you use the apostille, or you get legalization, or you only get a certified translation, all those kinds of different combinations are put together in an overview, so you know which costs roughly their could be included if you decide for one of these options. Then I have put together a hospital database. So this is a ranked overview of all the hospitals in Germany. This is based on official data by the Ministry of Statistics in Germany and also the Kassenärztliche Bundesvereinigung, which is the association of medical doctors within the public insurance system. And this is a hospital database that gives an overview of all the hospitals in Germany, where they're located, the email addresses, how many doctors in each department they have working for them. And this is also ranked in terms of the doctor density in the region. So this will show you that hospital A is, for example, ranked in Munich. The doctor density there is X amount, and this would be the densest doctor density in all the hospitals in Germany. So this is kind of a way for you to give you guidance on which hospitals to contact if you are looking for potential employers. So if you remember the last part, I talked about maybe going for hospitals that are not as in or more in need of doctors. Maybe go for hospitals that have a lower doctor density in their region and also might be a little bit smaller than the big ones that are already in the really high density doctor areas. So this is not a perfect science, but I try to put together kind of a structure that to help you identify which hospitals could there be that are in regions that are maybe not so attractive, maybe in need of doctors, and aren't super huge, so not a lot of people might know them, but they could be a very good first step in your medical career in Germany. So I put this together that you can use, and you can also see how many doctors in a particular department are already working there. So you can see, okay, do they even offer the kind of field that I'm interested in working in? And the last part is a sheet where I have questions. So there's a form that you can use. If you have any open questions, you can just put them there, and I will try to research the answer and put it there. So this will grow over time, and this is something to use in order to keep this up to date and to see what questions are there out there, and have this as a living document and not a static document. So the main parts I will leave it as is, and these question parts are kind of where the dynamic element comes into it. And you are able to access this document on a monthly basis. So for a membership fee, you can subscribe to this. You can cancel it every month if you don't need it anymore. And if you say, I need this for the next 2 years, just stay a member for the next 2 years. Whenever you feel like you don't need it anymore, you can just cancel the membership. There's just a 1 month cancellation period. And yeah, this is hopefully something that will be useful to you if you choose to go along on this journey. And I hope that this video in general was useful for you to give an overview of what the process is. And if you decide to become a member and be part of this doctor guide that I put together here, I am super looking forward to hearing from you, getting your questions, and hopefully providing answers to you that will help you along the journey. And until then, I wish you all the best, and hopefully see you one day in Germany.